उसका इंटरेस्ट जाएगा बेनिफिशियरी को, ये आपने वहां पे लिख दिया। क्या उस बॉन्ड को फिर वो लेकर कहीं और भी इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं? अगर कर सकते हैं तो क्या क्या कंडीशंस हैं उसकी? वो उसकी भलाई के लिए ही होना चाहिए, किसी भी हालत में वो बिल्कुल जो उसका कॉर्पस है, जो ट्रस्ट प्रॉपर्टी है, वो खत्म नहीं होना चाहिए। अगर हो जाए वो किस किस कंडीशन में खत्म हो सकता है, इस तरह की चीजें आपको उसमें you necessarily have to provide it so that it's not misused. इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी है तो उसको रेंट पे डाला जा सकता है, उसको लीज पे डाला जा सकता है, इस तरह की चीजें। और इट कुड इवन बी कि अच्छा इतना रुपया हर महीना उस प्रॉपर्टी से दिस पर्सन विल गेट, ऐसा भी यू कैन प्रोवाइड a clause. It can be as specific or it can be left at the discretion of the trustees. So it depends on you. You are drafting a document that's like a law for the trust that you're creating. It's like you are starting it from the scratch. You can do whatever you want to do with it, so long as it's lawful, for a lawful purpose, you can do. And so long as you are entrusting it to trustees, you have beneficiaries, that's it. I also understand that there can be many circumstances that may not be foreseeable. Even as I'm saying, you will be thinking, मतलब आगे का कैसे पता होगा, कुछ भी हो सकता है आगे, तो कैसे हम पहले से उसको उसमें डाल दें. But at the end, it's for the benefit of the child. That's for sure. So whatever is done, you have to be lawyer. Obviously, you have to see a lawyer to get it drafted. So he would put those clauses in a manner so that it's always for the benefit of the child. That's the overarching clause there. So that it's not misappropriated or it's not used for their own interest, because that will be illegal. They will have to prove that it was for the benefit of the child. But the problem is they'll have to prove only when someone challenges it in the court. So it's better to put it in the trust document itself, so that even if tomorrow they go to sell the property, so the person will obviously ask for the trust deed and it will say, oh, this person does not have power, gone, he cannot sell the property there. So that's why it's important to be that specific. Then you can also say where all the money can be invested, if it's a movable property. एक और इनबिल्ट रेस्ट्रिक्शन है ट्रस्ट एक्ट में ही, वो है कि अगर जो बच्चा है वो competent to contract है, मतलब जो beneficiary है, if she or he is competent to contract, then she or he can at any stage ask the trustee to transfer the property. वो किसी भी स्टेज पे ट्रस्टी से कह सकता है कि भाई प्रॉपर्टी ना मुझे ट्रांसफर कर दो, बेनिफिशियरी कह सकता है, या किसी और को ट्रांसफर कर दो मैं जिसे कह. That happens only when she or he is competent to contract. Competent to contract का definition है कि major होना चाहिए and should not be of unsound mind. तो अगर ये है तब आपको इतनी टेंशन नहीं है, क्योंकि वो आपका बच्चा बड़ा होके 18 साल का होने के बाद she or he can herself or himself think कि हाँ ये तो मेरी भलाई के लिए नहीं सोच रहा है, मुझे वापस कर. That's possible. Next is so when you are, there's certain characteristics that you need to keep in mind when you are doing it. I think most of it I've already covered, but it's important to again reinforce them. एक तो ये specify करना कि आप इस trust को क्यों बना रहे हैं. वो recital clause जो सबसे ऊपर जो clause होता है उसी में अगर आप कर दें तो बाद में उसको interpret करने में आसानी होती है. इसीलिए देखेंगे कोई भी सेल डीड होता है, कुछ भी होता है, या विल में भी ऊपर होता है whereas करके एक क्लॉज या 2 क्लॉज होते हैं ऐसे, जिसमें कि क्यों आप बेच रहे हैं, क्यों कर रहे हैं, ऐसा लिखा हुआ होता है. तो वो जितना क्लियर होगा कि आप क्यों बना रहे हैं इस ट्रस्ट को, तो उतना आसानी होगी समझने में बाद में कि इसका पर्पस क्या था और ट्रस्टी उस पर्पस को पूरा कर रहे हैं. दूसरी चीज है कि ये तो आपने क्यों बना रहे हैं में आप बिल्कुल बोल सकते हैं कि वो मुझे अपने फ्यूचर का पता नहीं है, मैं इसलिए अपने बच्चे को का लाइफ सिक्योर करना चाह रहा हूँ. फिर आप पर्पस भी बता सकते हैं कि पर्पस इस ट्रस्ट का ये होगा कि मेरे बच्चे का ये चीजें, उसकी पढ़ाई और ये सब चीजें उसकी सिक्योर रहें फ्यूचर में. तो इतना स्पेसिफिक हो जाएगा। जब उसके बाद आपको उसमें ट्रस्टीज, यू हैव टू स्पेसिफाई द नेम्स ऑफ द ट्रस्टीज। इंडियन ट्रस्ट एक्ट के हिसाब से जो लोग बाहर डोमिसाइल्ड हैं, दोज हु आर डोमिसाइल्ड आउटसाइड, और दोज हु हैव कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट विद बेनिफिशियरी, या जो इंसॉल्वेंट हैं, वो प्रॉपर ट्रस्टीज नहीं है। आप चाहें तो उसमें स्पेसिफिक क्लॉज डाल के उसको उल्टा भी कर सकते हैं, मगर कोशिश करें तो अच्छा है, तो फ्यूचर में डिस्प्यूट्स नहीं आएंगे कि ऐसे किसी को ट्रस्टी ना बनाया जाए जो बाहर डोमिसाइल्ड है। और दूसरी बात हो गई कि आप उसमें ड्यूटीज एंड पावर्स ऑफ ट्रस्टीज की, यू as we were discussing, you have to be very specific about what kind of duties. If you're not very specific about the exact duties, at least be specific about what kind of duties you would want them to fulfill and what powers you would give to the trustees. Name of beneficiaries, या बेनिफिशियरी एक या एक से ज्यादा हो सकते हैं। अच्छा, अगर आप एक बच्चा का डिसेबल्ड है, एक नहीं है, आप दोनों के नाम पे करना चाहते हैं, वो भी पॉसिबल है। ट्रस्ट प्रॉपर्टी, इट विल बी ट्रांसफर्ड इमीडिएटली टू द ट्रस्ट अगर आप ट्रस्ट डीड बना के करते हैं, और अगर विल बना के करते हैं, देन इट हैपेंस ओनली आफ्टर योर डेथ। Besides this, you can also take support from a lawyer to insert clauses like appointment of new trustees by the existing ones. जैसे मान लीजिए कि किसी ट्रस्टी की भी उम्र हो जाएगी, या कुछ अचानक हो जा सकता है, बीमार हो जा सकते हैं, and they then would want to appoint a new trustee during their lifetime. That's always better than कि trustees नहीं है, अब क्या होगा. In fact, even your child can have a say in it. Of course, major होना चाहिए, इस तरह की चीजें उसमें आ सकती हैं. If you specify it in the trustee, तो आप वो भी कर सकते हैं. कैसे ट्रस्टी रिजाइन कर सकते हैं, वो एक प्रोविजन डल सकता है. रिमूवल ऑफ ट्रस्टीज, आई थिंक ये बहुत जरूरी है. अगर आप नहीं डालते हैं तो इवन इफ योर चाइल्ड वांट्स टू रिमूव, कल को उसको दिख रहा है कि इट्स नॉट बीइंग गवर्न प्रॉपर्ली, देन इट कैन ओनली the trustee can only be removed by decree of a court. तो उतना कॉम्प्लिकेशन में पढ़ने से अच्छा है कि आप उस ट्रस्ट डीड में ही ऐसा एक प्रोविजन डाल दें, so that the trustee can be removed अगर वो ठीक से काम नहीं. You can also provide, अगर वो if he's involved in this thing, तो बहुत स्पेसिफिक हो सकता है कि वो कंडीशंस जब ट्रस्टीज को रिमूव किया जा सके, जिससे कोई भी आर्बिट्रेरीली ऐसा ना हो कि तीन ट्रस्टीज हैं, दो कह रहे हैं इसको निकाल देते हैं, चलो और निकाल दिया. तो वो भी एक चीज आप ध्यान में रख सकते हैं. मीटिंग्स कैसे कंडक्ट करना है, डिसीजंस पे कैसे पहुंचना है, मेजॉरिटी से डिसीजन लिया जाएगा या इंपॉर्टेंट मैटर्स में यूनानिमस डिसीजन होना होगा. हाँ, जैसे कोई भी मनी रिलेटेड चीज है तो उसमें यूनानिमस, एक्सपेंसेस रिलेटेड चीज है उसमें यूनानिमस. इस तरह के प्रोविजंस आप उसमें डाल सकते हैं. इट्स लाइक एक जैसे कंपनी को शुरू करते हैं तो उसमें इस तरह की चीजें डलती हैं, कैसे बोर्ड मीटिंग्स होंगे, क्या होंगे, बिल्कुल वही चीज है, बस इसमें मैनेजमेंट सिंपल है, मगर रूल्स जितना भी क्लियरली लिखा हुआ होगा उतना स्मूथली आपका ट्रस्ट फंक्शन करेगा, जिससे कि कोई कंफ्यूजन ना रहे, कोई स्कोप ना रहे मिसमैनेजमेंट का. अच्छा, जब ऑब्जेक्टिव्स फुलफिल हो जाएंगे तो ट्रस्ट अपने आप से डिसॉल्व हो जाता है, तो उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. मगर आप उसमें ये बिल्कुल प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं कि उसके जैसे डिसेंडेंट्स को भी मिलेगा, या उसकी अगर मान लीजिए कि स्पाउस का डिवोर्स हो गया, जुडिशियल सेपरेट हो गए, तो उसको उनको नहीं मिलेगा. तो इससे क्या होता है, एक मेरे पास केस आया था काफी पहले, उसमें दो भाई थे. One brother had a neurological condition that led to psychiatric. He had I don't know exactly what he had, but he had a neurological and psychiatric condition. And the brother would keep saying कि अरे वो पागल है, पागल है. और पेरेंट्स को बोलकर उन लोगों ने एक ट्रस्ट बना दिया था. क्यों? क्योंकि जो उसकी जो ये थे, जिन्होंने जो मेरे क्लाइंट थे, उनकी शादी जैसे 40s की उम्र में अरेंज मैरिज हुई थी और एक लॉयर से हुई थी. पेरेंट्स ने ही कराई थी, मगर जब शादी होकर आई तो कुछ खटपट हुई और उनको लगा कि यार ये तो मतलब के लिए आई है, पैसे के लिए आई है, वरना who gets married at this age, she's also a lawyer. So she may tomorrow get a relinquishment deed signed from our son. उसको तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आएगा, तो उससे trust बना देते हैं. So every month he would get like 25,000 or something. So his problem was, I've earned all my life. He was in the army, and he was in a position to take decisions, and he could not understand why his family was doing this to him. And ये जो stress था ना बहुत जबरदस्त था, that they could not see. I having a neurological condition, I understand what stress can do, and I can say for sure that he would have led a better, far better life if he didn't have the stress. कि मेरे जाने के बाद मेरी बीवी को मेरा वो क्यों नहीं मिलेगा, वो जब मेरा इतना ध्यान रख रही है, she was the one who was taking care of him, then why wouldn't she get anything? So and the tragedy was, after years of battle, nothing happened. He passed away, and within a year the wife was murdered by the maid. तो ऐसे सब खत्म हुआ, but till the time this person was alive, he suffered, whereas his parents actually didn't want him to suffer. So it's also important to respect the autonomy of the child, to take informed consent, to speak to him, to understand how you should go about it. Is also an aspect that you should keep in mind, though it's not really legal, but I thought I would point this out because this is something that has always been on my mind. That's why when you told about this, I was really I really wanted to talk about it. This is the first time I'm talking about this case. Okay. This case has been there in my mind for such a long time.
So yes, this was a comprehensive set of information for all of us, I guess.
Yes.
And I think we move on to the next speaker, and then we will have question and answer sessions. Meanwhile, Sanchita ma'am, if there are any links that are useful for the parents to read, you could just paste it in the chat box below.
Sure. So I could not cover appointment of guardian under National Trust Act. So what I'll do is I'll just post the links that will help you.
Oh, you can go ahead. You can go ahead with that. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
No problem. I'll just take 2 more minutes. Sorry. So for appointment of guardians, it's under the National Trust for the Welfare of Persons with Autism, Cerebral Palsy, Mental Retardation and Multiple Disabilities Act 1999. So this act defines disabilities as the name of the act would suggest, that it's only for people who have autism, cerebral palsy, mental retardation and multiple disabilities. Multiple disabilities, I think this act is yet to be amended. So multiple disabilities is defined as 2 or more disabilities under the 95 Act. So it has limited scope, as you can see, but whoever is can apply under this act. You may want to know that even after 18 years of age, for still 18 years, of course, the parents are the natural guardians. That's not a problem. After that, you can get yourself appointed as a guardian or any other person. The purpose of it would be for obtaining loans, concessions, management of investments, safeguarding interests. Suppose a crime, a person with disabilities involved in a crime, or to ensure after your death, there's a guardian, there's an authority who can sign on behalf wherever necessary. Who can apply? Both parents can apply. If one parent is not available, has died, deserted, convicted, etc., then only one parent can also apply. Otherwise, siblings can apply, including half and step siblings. They can apply jointly or singly. Or a relative can apply if they are not available. If any of them are available, then of course, if parents are available, then consent of parents will be mandatory, even if another organization is applying. So relative can also apply. A relative would be any person related to person with disability by blood, marriage, or adoption. Any registered organization can apply. But again, as I said, consent of guardian would be necessary. They apply before a local level committee. So this local level committee is entrusted with the job of appointment of guardian. Local level committee may also direct a registered organization to make an application. So who can be guardians? So these people can apply. They can either apply to be appointed as guardians, or they may specify that so and so should be appointed as the guardian. So again, parents can be appointed as the guardian, siblings, or any member of the family, any other person, or a registered institution. All of them can be a guardian. If it's an institution, then it must be registered. And if the institution ceases to be registered, then the local level committee makes alternative arrangements for foster care till something permanent is arranged. And the applicant must be living in vicinity to where the person of disability is. Local level committee, while considering such application, shall consider whether the person with disability needs a guardian, the purpose for which the guardianship is required, and it shall then appoint the person as a guardian, also providing the obligations that the person will have to be fulfilled. The person so appointed has to be a citizen of India, not of unsound mind, or undergoing any treatment for mental illness. He should not have a history of criminal conviction, and should not be a destitute or dependent on others for his own living. Should not be a bankrupt, etc. In case an institution is appointed, then of course it should be recognized by either government. It should have minimum of 2 years of experience in offering services, disability services. Duties of guardian would be to take care of the person, to provide maintenance to the person, and take care of his or her property. It can be both, it can be either. And the guardian is required to furnish inventory and annual accounts. So at the moment they're appointed as a guardian, within a period of 6 months from the date of appointment, they will deliver an inventory of immovable properties and movable properties, along with statement of claims, debts, liabilities, everything of the person with disabilities. And they will have to do this every year, 3 months before the financial year ends. Guardians can also be removed. So it's not like once you've appointed, you cannot remove. So whenever a parent, relative, or a registered organization finds that a guardian is abusing or neglecting a person with disability, misappropriating or neglecting the property, then there is a prescribed procedure, or an inquiry is held, and a guardian, local level committee then removes a guardian.
Right.
So there's a website, you can apply through the website. It's a specified form. It's a very simple process. There's also master circular. I'll just end with this. There's a master circular on customer service in banks, 2015. It's issued by RBI. That says that banks are required to take note of the act for the purposes of opening and operating bank accounts. So if you're ever harassed that, oh, why are you signing? How do I know you are the guardian, etc.? Just that certificate from the local level committee suffices. If the bank is creating a problem, you just need to show this master circular to them. There's also a Delhi High Court order that's also recorded in this master circular. It says that in every conspicuous place of a branch, you need to display how you can approach the local level committee and get the certificate in both Hindi, English, and vernacular languages. So that is it.
Okay. So thank you for all the information. Just regarding this guardianship, I had an experience. I used to work at an organization called Cheshire Home. अंधेरी में एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है चेशायर होम, तो वहाँ पे एक ऑर्फन था और एक लड़का था जिसको सीपी था, जो कचरे के डिब्बे में मिला था. So they were rehabilitated at Cheshire Home, and both of them did not, one, the parents had abandoned the child, and one was an orphan. So the physiotherapist, who also happens to be my mentor, Dhruv Mehta, he became the guardian for both those children when they were small, and he was the signing authority for, you know, all the documents like you mentioned. तो जहाँ पे भी साइन लगता था पेरेंट्स का, वहाँ पे वो गार्डियन जो फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट थे वो गार्डियन बने थे, उन्होंने साइन करते गए. and today both of them are placed in Accenture. Both are they started off working at a local MNC, and they got promoted, and now both of them are working at Accenture. So things how they move, so that's one experience I felt like sharing. Okay, Mansi, I have kept you waiting. So now you
I
have.
think
Been
one
enlightening.
more
Yes,
word I would
Jasmina.
like to add
Yes, Jasmina.
is that the right person should be the guardian or a trustee, because if the right person is not there, then still the person is going to suffer. The person should be the right person who can be a trustee or a guardian.
Right, right,
Sanchita ma'am said that the beneficiary should be asked who would they want to appoint. That is an important thing which parents should remember while appointing the guardian and or the trustee. I think that is an important thing, Sangeet.
right. We have to take the beneficiary's suggestion and consider
Yes,
consent also.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, Mansi, over to you. Can you share your experience of forming a trust for Yash, your son?
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. And good evening to each one of you, everybody who's tuned in. Also, I'd like to take this one little opportunity. I know we're way inside this, but I would like to wish everyone happy Teachers' Day. It was yesterday. I am very key. I'm very excited to do this because for me, life's best lessons have come from Yash.
True, very true.
I mean, there could be many other people and everything, but what my son has taught me in the last 24 years,
Yes.
I can't say memories, but it's a life lesson. So there is something called patience and perseverance, which no school can teach you, no institution can teach you, only life and experiences. And having Yash around, I mean, I thank him every day, of course, that he gave me an opportunity to be his mom. But other than that, he's been a wonderful teacher to me. So
True.
happy Teachers' Day. And then coming back to why we decided as parents to have this trust, I would like to make an illustration. See, supposing each one of us, we live a very busy life, all of us, don't we?
Right.
I mean, Jas will agree, and she has lived a very busy life. And then I've known her so many years, and Jasmina, you have told me so many times that you sometimes want to get away.
Yes.
You want to get away. So let's say all of us want to get away someplace, and we have some resources, and we build a wonderful place somewhere on the outskirts.
Right.
Yeah, we build something. Let's say a small house or a small property we buy, and we make a wonderful place. Now, this place is very sacred to us because we have put our money, we have put our sweat in it, and we have put our desires in it. Right?
Right.
So, when we do this, and when we build a place, and you know that the place is far away from where we are. So what are we likely to do when we come back to our city, when we come back into the daily rut of our life? What do we do to that place? Do we leave a gatekeeper? Do we leave somebody to look after that place?
Yes.
So that gatekeeper is a trust. That
Wonderful.
gatekeeper is a trust.
Wonderful.
You get it? I hope I'm making myself clear on that. That gatekeeper. Yeah. So the trust is actually to safeguard. They are gatekeepers. These trusts that we form as parents are our gatekeepers. Even when we are alive and even when we are not there, this entity, that we have made will become our gatekeepers, will safeguard our children, will safeguard us also while we are there. So we made this trust with a very trusted friend of ours, Ashok Bhai Solanki. He is a chartered accountant. He himself is a parent to a Down syndrome boy, and they are at Villaparle. And at their behest, we made this trust when our son Yash was around 16 years of age.
Right.
So this trust came into existence in 2012. It's called Yash Welfare Trust. And as the name suggests, it is to basically safeguard his interests, his standard of living. So this entity that we made is actually ensuring that in case we are absent from the scene, we are not there, the beneficiary, which is this my son Yash, who is not, remember, he's a Down syndrome boy. In Yash's case, he cannot advocate for himself. He has limited advocacy. So he cannot advocate for himself. And so, in order to safeguard, maintain his standard of living such that he enjoys the same standard, the same benefits, and the same way of living is not hampered in case one of us or both of us are not around.
Right.
So this came into existence with that purpose. And that, of course, Sanchita has basically explained the entire process and everything. So I need not get into the details of it. But the way I'll just share with you what my indenture, the trust deed that I have on board reads like. It has about a few clauses, like it has it has the constitution of the trustees, what are the objectives of the trust, etc., etc. The objective is very clear. It is to safeguard, it is basically to maintain the same standard of living in case of our absence. And then the trustees, we, in our case, both of us, parents, are trustees. My husband is the settler. And we have one more person. We just decided to appoint one more person, which is my sister, my kin, my immediate kin, as the additional trustee. So in addition to this, because this is a small deed, we did not want to have more than 3 members. So we have just 3 of us. And again, in addition to the 2 of us who are the legal guardians also, this is my legal guardianship. This is a National Trust legal guardianship thing, certificate that we got it done in 2014 when my son was 18 years old. This is under the National Trust Act. What Sanchita was mentioning. This is that certificate. So in addition to the 2 of us who are the legal guardians, there is just one of my kin who's the trustee in our case. But my deed, my indenture reads that it could, the number of trustees, the constitution of trustees could be at least 2 people, but not more than 5 people. Right.
Right.
And then, of course, there is the Constitution categorically states that the trustees should be of sound mind, should not have any kind of legal, they should not have rubbed themselves in the wrong way, and there should be no legal conviction on them. Whatever decisions that the trustees take, the sole approval of the settler is mandatory. The sole approval of the settler, which is we as parents are the settlers, and so our approval is there till we are there, of course. Our approval has to be taken in case of whatever the trustees decide to do. The management of the trust is, of course, general affairs, and then the trust has a lot of powers. It is empowered to buy, sell movable, immovable properties also, all done with, of course, the approval of the settlers. But yes, they do have these powers also. And they can, here it categorically reads, they can appoint employees. The trustees can actually appoint employees. They can also engage contractors if they want, if they deem that that is in the interest of the beneficiary. They may do so. They may also seek consultation from doctors or specialists in case, again, as in when the needs of the beneficiaries have to be met. Because in my case, as we know that Yash is a child in need of special care and attention, so he cannot be vocal for himself. So henceforth, the trustees can take all these decisions on his behalf, which me and my husband, we do under the legal guardianship under the National Trust Act, because Yash cannot actually act on his behalf. So the advocacy remains with us. Right. And therefore, even the trustees are entitled to do the same. Now, most of the things have been covered by Sanchita, so I don't want to get into it. But in our case, the dissolution of the trust is when the beneficiary ceases to live. That is when this indenture will be dissolved. And the rest, of course, is in case both of us are there or the trustees are there, then according to the will and testament of the settlor, the assets can be distributed. So these are some of the clauses that we have under this trust deed, that the indenture that we have.
Yes. I'm just muting. Yeah. Okay, great. So quite a lot of information from the lawyer and from a parent. In my head, there are many questions that have been coming up, and I'm sure the participants also might be having questions. So I request all the participants to, type in the questions, or you can raise your hand so we know that you have a question and we can take it up. So so I wanted to discuss a scenario with you both. I know of a family of a 22-year-old girl who has cerebral palsy, and both parents, I don't know if they are here. I had informed them about the webinar, but they were interested in forming like a trust and also appointing a guardian. Now she is 22 years old. She has cerebral palsy, which has affected all 4 limbs, and she also has mental retardation, severe mental retardation. So self-care activities and ADLs and all that, she requires supervision and help. Now, for such a girl, the parents wanted to, secure, say, her future. That's what we are discussing today. So this question goes to both Sanchita ma'am and Mansi. What all ideas that we have shared today can be applicable here in this scenario?
I think I think they should get themselves appointed as guardians. That's the first thing, because she has already crossed 18. And then the next step would be to form a private trust on the same lines as Mansi was sharing, where they have the option of appointing more trustees, and they appoint more trustees during their lifetime. Till the time the settler is alive, it's not a problem, but to foresee the future and have provisions so that the future is taken care of is important. So I think these things can be taken care of. And once this trust starts functioning, as I said that, you have a property where you're residing at the moment, then by way of a will, you then, and that will has to be really clear, and the executor, it's very important to have a person as the executor who's very you have confidence over that person, that the person will execute the will properly, and the property will divest either in the same trust or directly, whatever way it can work. It can be even in the alternative, something else can be arranged. Say the legal guardian who will take up after them, maybe during their lifetime, they may see and appoint somebody else as the legal guardian and maybe leave one property there and trust with another set of property.
Right.
Something of that sort.
And ideally, how should they approach the lawyer? I mean, they go to any known, and how do they go about doing that?
So for drafting of a trust deed, of course, you need a good lawyer to do it. I think Mansi's lawyer has done a good job. You can also get a second opinion from another lawyer to see if that's fine or not, because sometimes other lawyer may have some additional clauses for you. And then you, of course, go to the sub-registrar's office and get an agent or somebody to get it registered. That's
I have one observation. Just one observation to make. My trust deed, under the clause of management of the trust, also has this clause. Maybe Sanchita can give us more clarity on this, that in the event of the fact that the benefit, that the father, which is a settler, is no more, then the trustees shall make such arrangements as they deem fit, including, if warranted, enlisting the help or services of appropriate bona fide charitable organizations also. So for cases what Sanket you are mentioning, you know, that this said person has got multiple disabilities or needs a lot of special attention 24/7, 365. And what happens if the immediate parents or the immediate guardian is not around? So this is included in my indenture, which says that the trustees have this, they are empowered to actually enlist the help and the services of a bona fide charitable organization to look into the benefit of the beneficiary who is severely disabled also. I have that, yeah. I have that.
Idea is, I think, whatever a parent would do for their child.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this duty and power of the trustees have to be that specific.
Right. And you, Sanchita ma'am, had mentioned about, you know, an organization also can become, you know, part of
legal guardian.
Yes. But that should be mentioned in the...
That should be mentioned.
In the indenture. In the indenture. If they are specific, better. So in the light of how you said, you know, that your, the ward has multiple disabilities, and in such cases, maybe this could be an option they could look into.
Right.
Yeah.
Mrs. Badwe, if I'm, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I'm Mrs. Badwe. I'm also a physiotherapist, and my son is a case of Down syndrome, and who is at the borderline of IQ. So my question was that one of my friends who had made a trust, she advised me that it becomes very tedious because those trustees, do they have to meet once a year or 2-3 times a year, anything like that, and they have to have audit? Do they have any other regularities like that per year? Every year, do they have any
so
means
it all depends
do they have
on
any responsibilities in today's busy life? Means
right. So it all depends on what you provide in the trust deed. That's like the constitution of your, that's like the law that will govern your trust. So if you say there has to be an annual meeting, and I think certain regulations are important. So even if it's tedious, they can do it, say, by circulation, right? So say a resolution has to be passed. You can say that important decisions or all decisions have to be taken by way of resolution, a majority. Right? So in that case, it can be done by circulation. Like all these trusts, even public trusts or whatever those trusts may be, they send your office boy and to get the resolution signed. These days you have internet, you can, you know, send it a soft copy. It can be signed and then, you know, it can be sent forward. So these things are possible, but it's important to have such clauses and not just to think, oh, it will be tedious in future for the trustees, etc. Because at the end of the day, these are important decisions that need to be taken. You need not have AGM, etc. for trusts, right? Okay. You don't need to mandatorily have a meeting for trust. Only if you provide it, it will become mandatory. You need not have an audit clause there.
Oh.
right? It's not really a huge public trust where you would want it to be audited. If you want, you can have it, or you can give those powers to future trustees to insert such clause. Another important thing would be to amend the trustee. To what extent you would want it to be amended, to what extent how you would want it to be amended, etc. I think that's also, those are legal intricacies that lawyer can support you with. So like, I wouldn't want to necessarily wanted to insert a certain clause, but I can tell you, if you have this clause, this will happen. If you don't have this clause, this can happen, and then it's your decision.
Because
my indenture reads, I have
trust.
clause number 8 that reads that the trustees shall hold meeting at least once in each calendar quarter. And in case of difference of opinion, the majority shall prevail. And in the event of equality of votes, the chairperson shall have the casting vote. Now, the chairperson in my case is us, which is my husband, which is a settler. So he has the casting vote. Regarding audit and all, no, we just filed a return saying nil return. That's it. We don't.
But now I just want to know that, see if you have a trust when you are, I'm sorry. You know, I'm out of town, so my connection is very poor. So sometimes I find it difficult to understand. Sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to know that when you say that when we are alive, if you create a trust, see, when we have an income, so what you are supposed to do then? You should keep a fixed amount in FDs or something and try to get a fixed income in that trust. What should we do then?
Yeah, you can do that. FD is the best way to have the finances ready, and so yeah, that's, I think.
It categorically states, you can also invest in movable, immovable property. So that's your volition.
Right.
That you can exercise your volition, and
because I was advised that you can just convert your house into a life estate and keep the amount in one account, and you can have 2-3 your trustworthy your relatives and friends, right? From 30s to the age which varies, so that they somebody will be there. The young person should be at least in 30s or late 30s, so that it will be easy to manage everything. So is it advisable to do that, to create? And it can happen only after your demise, means both of us. After that, if you convert your house into a life estate, which cannot be sold till the time he is alive, and after that it can go to his brother. Means I have a younger son also who lives abroad, and this money which will be sufficient for him, and this money can be used by those 3-4 trustees. Means I won't call them trustees, but our friends and relatives, 2 or 3 people who can take care of those funds and use it for my son, whose name is
Yes, ma'am, we got your question.
To do that? Because he said, huh?
Yes, we got your question.
Better?
I think Sanchita ma'am and Mansi.
So whatever you want to do after, so you want to convert your house into a life estate after your demise. So in that case, your will have to take care of that.
Yes.
will and testament.
Yes,
Correct.
I think that's a good option.
That's a good option.
Yeah.
Because then it's just a matter of trust. And I was told that from those who will be the joint members of that account, means after their demise, nobody can claim that whatever the amount we have kept in fixed deposit, as it is by will that we have made them the members of that combined joint account. So is it better to have it that way, or is it better to have a trust? What is good?
I think both has its own benefits, and so whichever way you would want it. If you are saying you already have a property that will take care of his future, then of course you can do it by way of a will. If you have people whom you trust, who will execute it properly, who will also take care of the property so that he keeps getting money out of it regularly. That's the whole purpose, right? So
Yes.
if you have such people and you can see that the will won't get disputed, etc., you have to foresee, because there could be, I've seen so many disputes in court where people come up with another will, all of that. So maybe some distant relative, somebody with an objection. So these things happen. If you don't foresee such things happening, you can leave the entire thing by way of will. That's not a bad option.
Right.
Or
because my younger son can look after him, but at the
that's
same
fine.
time,
Then that's perfect. That's a perfect solution.
Then it's okay, I think, not to just convert it into
life estate.
The life estate, and then keep a joint account, and then see that he's looked after well.
Right.
Is it practical? Means can it be done this way?
Of course.
Or is it good to have trust?
No, there's no such thing.
No?
Of course.
Yeah.
Because now you are there to look after him, so it's fine. Only when you need something to be there, you need it to be invested somewhere, and all of that has to be done, then you need a trust. Otherwise, will is fine.
Okay, we have a question from Shirish. Thank you. We have a question from Shirish Bhagwat.
Hi.
Tanesh, Dad, you can go ahead.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, just had a couple of questions. Okay, the first maybe could be really stupid question, perhaps. Okay, the thing is, like, if the child goes major, and what all that what all things that you foresee as a risk if you don't have the legal guardianship done?
See, basically, then when you attain majority, you obviously have to sign stuff, you have to invest somewhere. All these decisions have to be taken. If the child is capable of taking all those decisions, then no problem. If suppose he's accused of something, if he's able to defend himself, all of that, then there's no problem. Okay. Otherwise, you appoint a guardian just to say that this person cannot speak for himself, and somebody is authorized to speak for him. Okay. Right? So it's kind of a protection for him.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was the only thing, because just to give the real case, my son, he is almost 80-85% disabled. He still cannot talk and walk. Okay, so in that case, everything is being taken care by us. Okay, so as of now we are doing it, and going forward also we'll do. But I was just seeing where all it can be a problem. Now, for example, just worry that I have, suppose he has to undergo surgery, a major surgery or something like that. We as a parents will be able to take care of that, right? Even though he's a major, there won't be any issue, right? Even if we don't have that legal guardianship, we still can manage, right?
Sure.
Okay, so this is for the future that we are talking about, that the legal guardian has to be there, right?
For the future, as well as say for financial transactions, etc.
Yeah,
he's capable of deciding, of course, in your case, he is. So that's
fine. No, I was just worrying, like, where all the problems could come if the guy is major, and what all places the problem could come in. That's what my worry was. That was one thing. And another thing, I always that one thing keeps in my mind, that if we appoint somebody as a, let's say, guardian, okay, so what all the obligations that person will have, okay, because of course the person whom we are appointing will be from our close relatives or friends, okay, taken care, but still from his side, if we have to make him understand what are the obligations that he should be fulfilling, okay, that's a kind of a perhaps risk from his side or her side, who is trying to become a guardian, which he should be clear about, right?
So may I just
yes.
This is what I'm trying to read out. This is a national trust which I just displayed. Herein it categorically states clause number 3, obligations of the guardian.
Okay.
It says A, maintenance and residential care.
Okay.
B, management of immovable property. C, management of movable property. D, any others that the guardian shall furnish property to this committee as per form C and D under these specific rules. So maintenance and management and etc. So these are categorically listed in this National Trust Act, and this certificate that you can procure. These are listed. So these are the obligations of the guardian. So it is better to if this ward is there as soon as the ward becomes an adult or a major. Get this guardianship done, certificate done. So you will get to know about the obligations of the guardian also.
All right, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it'll be very clear.
We have a question in the chat box. Does a trust need to have a PAN card, and do returns need to be filed separately?
Yes, you do need to file returns.
Yes.
If the settler has kept a lot of rights to herself or himself, and if he or she has made it revocable, then the settler becomes the SSE. So in either case, it's the trust that has to pay the returns, but the obligation comes on the settler if most of the rights have been retained by her or him. Otherwise, it's the trustees who are considered as the SSE.
Okay. And one more question is, which section of the National Trust Act mentions disabilities?
Okay, let me just tell you that, though I think I can answer Saudamini that a little later. Let me open the act.
Meanwhile, anybody else?
Section 14, this is the appointment of guardianship, of course. That's section 14 of the National Trust Act.
Sorry,
Rule 16.
Okay,
National Trust Rules 2000.
Okay, that is the appointment of guardian.
Appointment of the guardian.
Okay, and which section mentions?
I'll tell you.
Saudamini has a question.
I'll tell you.
Meanwhile, any other parent or any caregiver has a question. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. Hello, good evening. My name is Fatima.
Yes,
Hello.
Fatima, please go ahead.
Yes, I am mom to a son with autism. Like his name is Jeet. I have a query regarding the trust.
How old is your son?
My son is 23, sir.
Okay.
And I have a query regarding the property that, like, supposing I have a flat now with me that I want to. I want to interest it in my son's name. And what happens is, like, when I am alive, at that point of time, like, something happens in my this thing, and I want to sell off that flat and buy some new property, or just sell off this flat. So is that possible?
Can you repeat the question again, please? I'm so sorry. Can you please repeat it again? So have you already created a trust, or is the property in your name?
No, ma'am. I've not yet created a trust, but I do have a flat, like, which I want to put it in Jeet's name, which will be which will go into as his property in the trust. Right now, supposing in this time period of, say, next 10 years or 5 years, supposing I want to sell off this flat, so whether that will be possible?
Okay, so as trustees, you can always sell it. You can give yourself that power to sell it. That will be possible if the trust deed allows it. So you need to prepare a trust deed in a manner so that you may say that settler can sell it. Even if you don't want to give the trust.
I would be the settler, since I would be forming the trust.
Right. So you can give yourself that power, even if you don't want to give it to the trustees, or you can even give the trustees that power depending on it.
Okay. That means it is not something like the flat is locked and we can't do anything with that later.
You have to specifically provide for it in the trust deed. That's it.
Okay, sure. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Okay, Harsha Shah, I guess the name is. You have a question? Galaxy A30s. आपको क्वेश्चन पूछना है हर्षा शाह?
I can't see the mic icon there. I think there's some problem with maybe.
Oh yeah, yes. I think they have not. I'll just tell her to type the question in the chat box.
Please.
Yes. Anybody else?
Alka, do you have a question? I think Alka has a question.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Oh, she's muted herself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If my mother wants to will a property in my name, can I do the same thing? Make a will of the same property in my son's name also?
Yes, you can.
So how do I go about this?
So will, there's no, still it's better to go to a lawyer, or otherwise you can just look at a format online and prepare it accordingly. It's not rocket science.
Okay. So it can be transferred from my name, from my will to my son.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You can get the, it's always better to get the will registered, though it's not mandatory. It just increases the credibility of it. And you have two witnesses who are not the, beneficiaries.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Supposing you create a trust and you create a trustee also, there's a trustee. Supposing the trustee doesn't behave the way he's supposed to behave, then what are the safeguards that we have?
So you can have a
He will
removal
not
of
be
trustee.
He'll not be around, right? He will not be around. So supposing this is all for the eventuality when we are not around.
Right. So you can have ideally you should not have just one trustee. So when you have 2 or 3 trustees, you have 3 trustees, for example, then you have a removal of trustee clause also. That if these things happen, then a trustee can be removed by the other 2 trustees by way of, say, a resolution, etc. So that is possible. So when you specify that clearly, that if a trustee is found involved in this, therefore he can be removed. Then what happens is, even if a trustee is being wrongfully removed by the other 2 trustees, say 2 trustees are conspiring against the good trustee, then he can move the court and get it resolved. So that's possible. Therefore, it's important to be specific. And otherwise, of course, if somebody challenges it in the court, then he can be removed. But it's always better to have a specific clause for removal of trustees in the deed itself. Mansi, do you want to add something?
Yeah, there is this,
Saudamini has another
there are
question.
these, it is enlisted in the power of trustees that they can actually appoint, engage contractors. They can also take decisions pertaining to the dismissal or termination of
yes.
Which you, I'm just adding on to that.
Sure, sure.
You explained it well. Thank you.
Anything else you want to ask?
There is another question from Saudamini. Is the will for such trust dependent on the rules of family law? For example, Hindu law, Muslim law, and so forth.
Will for such trust, I do not understand it, but then I know what she means. Rules of family law, to the extent where, say, some personal laws, Muslim law, wouldn't allow a married woman to be a trustee. If you come from such a, if you're governed by such a family law, then of course it will bind you. Otherwise, there's nothing.
Just one more question. Supposing you have property, say we reside in Mumbai, if we do the registration somewhere else, will it work, or how is it actually? Because the stamp duty in Maharashtra is pretty high, right? So,
I know, but then still, wherever the immovable property is, you have to get it registered there. So if it's in Maharashtra, then it's in Maharashtra.
So supposing you create a trust and okay, you can't transfer again the transfer. You can't transfer the property to trust directly.
Yes, you can.
You can, right? Then the stamp duty would apply.
Stamp duty you cannot escape. So the regulations are such that you cannot really escape the stamp duty. It's only if you do it by way of will that you can.
Better not do it. Better not do it. Pay the stamp duty.
Yes, Saudamini. Yes. You got your question answered?
Yeah,
Saudamini?
hi. Saudamini has one more question. If if you want to dissolve a trust and you want to like start a charitable organization, NGO, or are there a listing of charitable NGOs who can like the trust is dissolved? Who can manage the financials of charitable trust, maybe after dissolving the trust?
Right. So as Mansi was saying that they can have such clauses that a registered charitable organization can do it. So you can have a specific clause for dissolution, or even if you do not have it, of course it dissolves on death of the beneficiary automatically. Otherwise, if the trustees want, then they can, you know, entrust some other organization, registered organization, to do the same thing that they were doing, exactly the same thing.
Right, right.
Any other?
Which NGOs they have to be registered NTO?
Registered.
Yes.
Bona fide. They should be bona fide. Bona fide.
Depends on what you include in the clause.
Bona fide charity.
But yeah, so it depends on how you put in the clause. But otherwise, of course,
Better
it's
be
better for
bona
you.
fide charity organizations.
Yeah, it's better for you to
The bona fide ones. Yeah.
What does that mean? Bona fide?
They should be. It's
Registered.
better. Yeah,
Registered.
It's
Okay.
better. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah.
Right. Right. Jasmina,
Thank
you have any question?
Jazz.
Such. But I wanted to know what if the trustees die? What if all the trustees are no more? Then
Therefore, you should include a clause in the trust deed itself for appointment of new trustees, so that during their lifetime, the trustees are able to appoint new trustees, or if one has died, the rest can appoint. Therefore, it's always better to have more than one trustees.
And then I think I mentioned, Jasmina, when we were also talking that the Constitution states, at least my indenture states, that the trustee should not be over 85 years of age. So in case you find that the trustees are, wearing out, or then they can opt out, and then they can they can actually make new appointments.
Right.
Well within time.
I had a weird question to Sanchita ma'am. How can things go south in this whole will trust, and how can we be more what precautionary measures we can take?
I think, Sanket, throughout when I was speaking, I had all these in mind, or this can happen, that can happen, and therefore I was asking people to be very specific, because I had a villain in mind as a trustee. That's how you need to approach that. Tomorrow, the people whom you are trusting so much today may not turn out to be the same people. So what do you do then? So you have to really, really be realistic to that extent for your child.
Yeah, so I think specificity helps in that regard.
Yes.
Right, right. Great. This was eye-opening, mind-opening session. Yes.
And in addition to the trust deed and the indenture, there could be a will and testament also then. So it is like a supportive document.
That's a plan B, right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
As in, like you said, if things go awry.
Right, right.
With
right.
the constitution of the trustees.
Right, right.
So
you can also create a trust by way of a will. So the entire trust deed can be a part of will.
So that becomes a statute.
Okay.
It becomes,
so after the parent's death, it converts to the will. The same trust, it converts to.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah.
So my parents are no more, okay, and they appoint certain people of trustees as my guardian, and I'm not comfortable with their decisions. So, do I have the right to change the trustees in that case?
That clause, I think, needs to be included that the beneficiary can appoint someone else if not comfortable, right?
That's right. And there's section 56 also. So if you're competent to contract, you are a major and you are not of unsound mind as per Indian Contract Act, then you can always tell the trustees, look, I want my property back, or you give it to so and so. I don't want you to manage it. That can always be done.
Okay. Chitra Iyer has a question. Can NRIs be guardians and trustees?
See, if you specifically provide in the trust deed that you still want them to be, they can be a trustee, but it's better not to go that way because Indian Trust Act says that they are not proper trustees. So it's better if you can avoid it. In either case, they are NRIs. So, you know, if they're domiciled in India, then of course you can, but otherwise it's better to avoid it.
Yes, so in one of the webinars, we had a question from a PWD. Where the finances are being managed from abroad, from his relatives abroad.
Yeah.
And so in that case, if any trust formation takes place and they need to fund, can that happen?
Right. So since it's a private trust, you don't really have all those issues that public trust has. So that's not a problem. Right, so you don't really get into that hassle, but with funding and all, right?
Okay.
But,
so the people abroad can fund, but like you said, am I right?
It's not a donation. See, you're confusing private and public trust. Private trust is something that's the trust property. They are not seeking donation.
Right. That is in public trust.
That's a public trust. For that, you need permission.
Correct.
And specifically when it's relative, then it's very tricky when it comes to public trust, right? And NRIs can be appointed as guardians so long as they're citizens of India. They can be appointed as guardians.
Okay. Any more questions from the participants, or can we conclude the session? I have given Maya and Jasmina's number in the chat box. So any queries later, you can just direct to us and we'll direct it to the speakers. Chitra Iyer is asking if they are dual citizens, does that?
So long as they are citizens of India, they can be appointed as guardians. That's not an issue.
Right. So yes, I think time to conclude the session. Thank you both the speakers, Sanchita ma'am and Mansi. You provided us with a lot of information. We got to know the lawyer's perspective and the parents' perspective. And I think the information that you have given us will empower the parents to know about the trust and also encourage them to start thinking about it. There are many parents who have that in the back of their minds, but they don't know about the execution of it really. So I think this provides a lot of ample information for the same. Thank you so much.
I'll just provide my email ID in case somebody wants to reach directly.
Yes.
Great. And Mansi also, if you can either your number or your email ID. I think your email ID you can just type in the chat box.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Jasmina.
I would like to thank both the speakers. Thank you very much for joining us, and it was a very informative session for me also, because being a PWD, I also got a lot of information which I was not aware of it. So I think it was an enriching session for me also. I got a lot of knowledge which I was having a lot of questions till now. I think that got clear to me today.
Yes, so I thank both the speakers and thank you Tasleem for relentlessly
Yes.
doing with interpreting.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and I think we will keep in touch, all of us. We will also be in touch with the speakers. So any queries directed to them later also, we
can
can
pass it on to
pass
them.
it on to them. And we are
Yes.
putting this on our Access to Hope YouTube channel and our Access to Hope Facebook page. So you can revisit it later.
Yeah, you can.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Jazz.
much.
Thank
For
you. Thank
thinking
you.
of me. Thank you so much, Jazz.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.